Hey friends, welcome to my channel. Today I have 15 fall projects that I have had so much fun making throughout the season. I'm bringing them all together in a mini compilation video. I hope you will feel inspired. Now let's get crafting. I was online the other day and I saw this vase that cost over $100. Now I will say that it was a 12-inch size vase, but I'm going to recreate it for basically $3. I'm going to be taking this glass vase and some of this crackle paint, and I'm going to create the look that I saw online that was so expensive. First, I spray painted my glass jar from the Dollar Tree a creamy ivory. Then I used a thick coat of the crackle paint medium and let that dry really well. And then I'm going to come back in with this pretty clay gray color, and I'm going to just put a very nice coat. Now, tip for this part, make sure you work quick with the crackle paint, because as soon as you put it on, it starts activating that top layer. And the real trick is making sure you have a thick coat of that crackle paint medium on first and it's dried, and then you put on a thick coat of your top paint. Now I sped up the process so you can see that it crackled and did its job. I love using this product. It's such a fun thing to be able to see it activate and the paint starts to crack and chip. And you can see down on the bottom of this jar that I didn't put a thick enough layer there. It's more of a brushed dry stroke, and that's what I'm talking about. You want to make sure you've got a nice thick coat on it so it doesn't have brush strokes and it has more of a crackled effect. Now I went on the bottom of the jar and I just added on some distressing, and now I'm going to do a macrame around the jar. Macrame vases can cost so much money, and this is the reason why I wanted to share this project. I'm just taking a twine long enough that's going to wrap around the base, and now I'm just looping on 5 strands. And I'm not going to go over the full macrame process just because there's so many tutorial videos out there, and I've even covered it here on my channel before. But I've got 5 strands on one long strand, and then I'm going to tie that around the base of my jar, add a little dot of hot glue underneath each one to keep it in place to make sure it doesn't slide as I'm macrameing and knotting it up to the top. And then I'm simply just going to take a rope at the very bottom and I'm going to spiral it around so that it gives it a nice base for it to be sitting on, so it looks like my inspiration that I found online. And I'm making it for so much less. And then once that's all glued into place, I can start knotting my twine that I have coming up the side of the jar. Now I will say at this point I was getting a little bit nervous about this project, but always see your projects through. Don't ever give up on them, because as I got to the end of my project, I started to really fall in love with it, because traditionally these colors are not what I do in my home, but the texture when I'm done turns out so beautiful. I was so excited how it turned out. Now you can see at this point I'm doing 2 macrame knots going up. I've got one at the middle point and one more towards the top point, and then I'm kind of doing a not full macrame look at the top because you're not even going to see it. I'm just pulling those top twine ropes where I did the last knot, and I'm bringing them over into the edge of the vase and just gluing them into place. Super simple, and you still get the look and without all the fuss of trying to tie those top knots. Then I'm going to add in some foam and some beautiful white peonies from the DT, and I'm just simply going to fluff those and zhuzh those until I get them to a place that I'm really happy with them. I'm going to take a pack of painter sticks. There's 10 inside the pack that you can pick up at Home Depot, and it's $1. I'm going to put 8 of them side by side, and the last 2 I'm going to measure it as the length of all of these 8, and then I'm going to cut it down to size with my miter box and my saw. I'll link it down below. I get asked all the time. This is my favorite one that I have. I'm going to just add on some hot glue and some wood glue, little dots, and I'm just going to add that all together to make sure it bonds well. And I'm not going to use any staple guns on this because I feel like the hold was well enough. Then I took it outside and I spray painted it a taupey tan color. And now I'm going to add on some rub-ons. Now, if you have a vinyl cutting machine, you can totally use that too. But this makes just such a cute, easy sign that you can recreate and customize to whatever you want. And I want you to see that you don't have to have a vinyl cutting machine. You can hand paint the letters like I do a lot here on my channel, or you can use stickers, or you can use rub-ons. There's so many options out there if you don't have a vinyl cutting machine in your budget. I know that a lot of times it's what crafters show here on YouTube, and I just want you to know that if you don't have one, that's okay. You can still be creative without spending a ton of money. Then at the very top, because there's no place like home, I put my little apostrophe up at the top, and now I'm going to add some greenery. I'm just going to take some boxwood, wrap a little bit of a gingham ribbon around it to hold those in place, glue that onto my sign, and then I'm going to add on a really beautiful white sunflower. I thought that this looked so pretty and can be used more than just for one particular season. You can use it year-round. Then I'm going to take my Crop-A-Dile, one of my other favorite tools that I use a lot here on my channel, and I'm going to punch out 2 holes at the very top so that way we can have a beautiful ribbon that will allow it to be able to be hung up somewhere in your home. So I've decided to have my knots be on the outside because I just thought that that looked really cute. Once I've got my ribbon at the top, it's ready to be hung up and displayed. These are the supplies that I am using for this craft idea. I'm going to pop out these little wood decals that they had inside of 2 of these frames that I picked up from the Dollar Tree. And then I'm also going to remove the screws and the hanger off the back side, put that to the side. I'll use it on another day for another project, I'm sure. And then we're going to take our drill, and on the 3rd sign, I'm going to drill a hole in the middle. And then very cautiously on one of these little wooden squares you can pick up in the craft section at the Dollar Tree, I'm going to take my time drilling in a hole into the square. Now I'm going to take some hot glue and a shish kebab stick. I'm going to poke that down in there, and then I'm going to add some glue to the back side of this sign, and I'm going to thread that through and hot glue, making sure that it's in place and making sure that this is now going to be able to be used to thread on the topper of this lantern we're making. Now you can see with this little mini candle stem holder, I drilled a hole in the bottom. I also drilled a hole on the top so that I can thread it onto this shish kebab stick here. And this is going to be able to create this really cool finial topper to this lantern. That drill hole that I created inside of the candle stem is now going to hold this other shish kebab stick. I'm going to glue it in place and cut it down so that I can add on this mini finial topper. Now at this point we have created the top handle to our lantern, which I think it turned out so cool, and it is built so well that you're not going to have any problems with it popping off if you just only use hot glue. You could do that. But I have kids and I want my stuff to be able to be picked up without worrying it's going to break. So this is the reason why I took all these steps. Then I glued it to the sign, and now at this point I'm going to start cutting down all my tongue depressor sticks by chopping off all the rounded parts, the tips of it, and making sure they're all the same length. Now I'm going to start constructing the sides of my lantern. Now you have a couple options at this point. You could just do 4 corners and use a different type of wood in there, but I wanted it to have a really pretty backer. I wanted it to look more like a vintage lantern you would see on a front porch. I thought that the sides and the back really gave it that look, And I had so much fun coming up with this idea and just playing with it, and the inspiration that I saw once on a house. I thought this would be so cool. So once it was all assembled on the sides and the back, I took it outside and spray painted a dark gray color. Now I'm going to take one of these battery operated candles from the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to take a piece of foam square, cut it down to size, and I'm going to just poke that candle down in there so it can be a nice holding place so I can take it in and out. I'm also going to poke some holes in with a pin, so that way it allows me to add in any greenery that I want on this to camouflage where the candle is going to be hidden and held inside of. Now, another option, instead of doing all of this part, you could always end up putting a actual thicker, larger stand-up candle from, you know, a light up candle kit. You can get them all over the place around this time of year for really great deals. But basically, this is how I'm doing mine. I'm using one from the Dollar Tree to show you that I'm doing it all on budget. Added on all my greenery, some moss to cover up that foam. And the last thing I'm going to do, because I wanted that country charm, I'm going to add on this gingham ribbon. And to make sure that it stays inside of that foam, I'm attaching it to a popsicle stick, tying a knot, and now I'm going to just glue it all in place and stick that right down in there. And I think that this turned out so darling. You can turn the light on and off whenever you're ready to use it. Now, this turkey was picked up at Home Goods, and I have been searching far and wide for a turkey because I wanted to make one over to have a concrete cement look. So I was looking for a turkey that had a lot of detail. I ended up paying $15 for this turkey, and I was totally fine with that because turkeys, usually even this size, are easily $40 at certain decor stores. So I took it outside and I gave it a spray paint coat, and after that I'm now going to come in with white paint, and we are going to brush in that white paint into all of those crevices, and then use a paper towel, and we're going to wipe away the excess. So this is not a dry brush technique. This is an actual saturated paint brush where we are going to just use a paper towel and wipe away. The more paint on there, the better, because it's going to really get into those crevices. Now we're going to go the opposite with our paintbrush. Now we're going to get very, very light on there with the brown and do a dry brush. So you can see that I took the majority of the paint off, got a little bit on the head, and I'm drying it off on that paper towel and then coming in so I can hit those top parts to really bring out all the definition and make it look like a beautiful concrete statue. At the top, I was just stippling on by just tapping it with my paintbrush to really define the turkey's beak. And what a transformation. I'm so happy with it. For this project, we're going to be using this oh so popular sign that I use here a lot on my channel. I'm going to pop off that Happy Holidays, take off that ribbon and staples, and then I'm going to patch those holes from the staples with some putty, dry it, and then sand it to make sure it's all the same flat surface so that I can get to my next step. Now I'm going to take some white paint and give it a nice thick coat of white paint on it. And from there, I'm going to sketch on the word apples. Now, I have had a theme going this fall 2021. I thought apples would be so fun because I just think apples are really cute to decorate with for the fall, and it just gives it that country charm. So at this point, I went ahead and sketched out my word apples, and I'm coming back in with my thick paintbrush, and I'm just kind of doing almost like a sloppy job on purpose. I wanted the letters to look thick and bulky like you would see on some type of a cute country roadside rest stop where you can pick up some, maybe like a fruit stand. I just think that this would be so cute out on a shelf for the fall time. And now I'm going to come in and just really rough it up like it has been outside in the weather for some time. I think the rougher this sign looks, the cuter it gets. And then I'm just coming in with an even darker, almost like a dark grayish brown color, and just really roughing it up. Like I said, it's been outside. Now I want to clean up the back side so we don't see the elf, which that's cute for Christmas, but we're working on the fall. So I'm going to trace out a line on the fabric for the size that I need, and then just cut it off. And then I'm going to glue that to the back to really clean it up, because I love a finished backside to all my signs. And this really just is so easy to do. It takes just seconds. Then on the front side, I decided, this is the reason why I shifted the word apple over a little bit more. I wanted to add something to the left. So I'm now going to add on some fabric that matches the back and do a little simple knot. Added a little bit of a cute charm by kind of ruffling up the ends of that. I added in some of this boxwood, a little apple. Of course we have to add a little apple to it. So I put a little shish kebab stick down in there and glued that into place. And then the last thing I'm going to do is just add on this darling little chalk sign so we know how much our apples cost, which I'm going to decide to paint on 25 cents. Because I just think that this is the finishing touch of it, and it looks so cute on a shelf. I hope you will give this one a try. I had so much fun making it, and I know you will too. This project cost me $15 to make. Now I will say you could definitely make it much cheaper if you already have a whole bunch of fabric on hand. I ended up doing about 1/4 of a yard to 1/2 of a yard, depending on which fabric I was using, of all of these different fabrics. And we are going to be making a beautiful rag banner with these bright, wonderful fall colors. So I'm going to take a twine that I want to be a certain length. You can make it whatever length you want. And I'm going to add on just 2 loop knots on the ends of this twine so that we can be able to hang it up and have a nice loop to be able to put that on a hook or a nail, wherever you decide to hang this up in your home. And I'm going to cut off the extra and make sure it's nice and tight. And now I'm going to start taking the fabric and I'm going to rip it. So it's really easy to do this. You're going to find the grain of the fabric, and you'll know right away which way is the grain, because when you try to do this, one way will rip so smoothly and the other way will struggle. Once you've ripped everything up, go ahead and you're just going to loop on those fabrics. So I make it like the shape of a U, put it on the twine, and then I bring the ends through the loop so it's holding onto the twine. And then I just continue to do that. I create a pattern of how I want them to look, and I just stick to that order, going through all of the fabrics and repeating that pattern over and over again from one side over to the other end. And when you're done, this statement banner is the most beautiful banner and can be hung up all over your home. I just love it so much, and I hope you will give it a try. Anytime I ever see these metal urns, I always pick them up in a heartbeat. Even if they are listed for $5, I pick them up because they are so sturdy and you can turn them into the most beautiful arrangements. So I always just love to take off my stickers real slow. I took it outside and spray painted it white first. Now I'm going to come in with some brown paint, distress the edges because I wanted to give it a beautiful fall rusty look. I'm going with a brown and then also a goldish rust color on it, and I'm just tapping it into all the crevices and then dry brushing off any extra that I don't want. If I'm too heavy-handed on some spots, I come in with a wipey and I just simply wipe off some of the extra that I don't want on there. Then I'm going to go ahead and make sure I don't forget to do the underside of it and just keep working in all of that beautiful rust color that you would see if it set out on a porch for many, many years. And then I'm just going to come in and make sure I get all that detail up at the top as well. But technically there's going to be florals on this part, so I might be doing a little extra over the top. I just really love distressing things. So once my painting was all complete and everything was dry, I could start moving on to how I'm going to decorate the inside. The possibilities are endless, friends. You really could switch this out for any season if you wanted to. But how I'm doing is I'm just going to put a piece of foam in there. I'm not going to glue it into place. If I want to, I can pop it out and do something later on for the winter, for spring, for summer. And then I'm going to just start poking things into the foam. I have on some beaded garland, a few beautiful orange leaves, a few of these wheat picks, and then some of the red eucalyptus. And I'm just going to start poking everything in here until I get it to the look that I want. Nothing too crazy because I want to be able to put on this pumpkin. Now the pumpkin was just white, and I'm going to use the exact same coloring that I did on the urn. And I'm just going to come in with that goldish yellow and the brown. Once I got it to the desired look, I'm going to come in at the bottom with a shish kebab stick, poke that into place, and then slide that into the foam. This is going to lock everything in without anything rolling off or tumbling all over the place. And this is so beautiful on a side table or on a dining room table. Now we're going to do two last things. I'm going to take this beaded garland, I'm going to poke it into that foam again, and the extra I'm just going to wrap and coil all around the pumpkin at the base and work it up towards the top. I think that this added detail is so beautiful. Then I'm going to tuck the last of that beaded garland underneath the stem of the pumpkin and coil it on my finger to complete that top look. Now, one last thing I decided to do because I just can't help myself. I always feel that I can stop there or take it a little further, which is what I love to do in crafting. I'm taking one of these chalk clipped signs from the Dollar Tree. I popped off the clothespin that's on it, and now I'm going to add on some E6000 and some hot glue and glue it into place. And that completes this beautiful fall look. This particular project, I saw tons of online stores selling these for so much. Now I will say with all of these individual corn pieces from the Dollar Tree that I picked up, altogether it cost $12 to create this, but I know that there are real corn packets that you can get out there that are much cheaper. I happen to have had these on hand because I've been collecting them from the DT for some time. So these particular candle holders are so expensive, and all it is just gluing on pieces of corn onto an actual glassed item and then locking them into place by taking some raffia and wrapping it around. Again, I could probably get away with making this much cheaper if I had used real dried out pieces of corn, but this is what I had on hand, and I wanted you all to see that you can get that high-end look for a fraction of the cost and really enjoy your home by customizing with beautiful fall pieces. This fall freebie will be linked in my description box below so you can grab it. It's something I designed for all of you for free so you can get it and use it and craft with it. It has one printable that has a ditzy floral print with a blue background, and then this other one that says, "I love you more than turkey." Funny thing about me, I'm actually a vegan, and I have been a vegetarian pretty much my whole life, but over this last few months I've become a vegan. And I just thought it would be the funniest thing to do. I love you more than turkey. So I'm taking a Dollar Tree canvas. I took all of the staples and the fabric off of it, the canvas fabric. I traced it onto the floral print, and I'm going to cut that down to size. And then I'm also going to trace on a piece of chipboard. I will link the chipboard that I buy on Amazon down below in the description box. I buy a big pack of them, and they're so great to work with for paper crafts like this, like these kind of signs. I'm tracing it and cutting it down to size, and then I'm going to put that off to the side so I can paint my frame. I'm now just taking a darker stain first, rubbing that in, and then I'm going to take a lighter stain, and really by stain I mean paint, and I'm just going to rub that on top so it gives it a nice wood look. Now once everything's dry, I'm going to go ahead and glue on the artwork first, and then I'm going to glue on that chipboard on the back so it has a nice clean finish and the printable is nice and strong inside of that frame. Once those are glued in, I'm going to go ahead and move on to the I Love You More Than Turkey. I went ahead and cut that out and traced it onto the remaining pieces of the chipboard because I love to use as much of my scraps as possible to save money. I went ahead and traced that on, and now I'm just going to cut it down to size. And you can see over to the right I have a larger one over there, and I'm using this other scrap piece to complete the full length and size of the I Love You More Than Turkey part. And I'm just going to glue that on so it has a nice strong base. And then we're going to pop it up just a little bit more by adding some more of those scraps, glue that on, and put it into the center of our frame, actually a little bit higher, so that we can add a bow and it finishes the look, and it is such a funny and cheeky sign. I love using food cans because it is the easiest trash to treasure flip. I think that they are so affordable and you can do so many cool things with them to help organize things around your house and to make something beautiful on a budget. Now I took my 3 cans outside, spray painted them white, and now I'm going to cover them with different sizes of this fabric that I found that matches my color theme for today. One of the cans is going to have a nice thick piece of fabric from the top to the bottom, leaving the white rim poking out. And then the other one is going to have a much smaller band of fabric around it, leaving more white exposed. And then the tallest one, we're going to jazz it up a little bit by putting on this white star button and some twine as well. I simply took it and just wrapped it around and glued it into place. Nothing too crazy here. And then for the little star, I just added some twine into the holes of the button and glued it into place. Now at this point, this extra special jar is going to get a floral arrangement in it using those really beautiful frosted leaves from the Dollar Tree. And at this point, it is so fun because you can put whatever you want inside of them. I've seen a lot of friends DIYing these boxes, and when I was at the thrift store the other day, I actually came across one. I could not believe it. Now I got this half off on their half off day. I was so excited. So I went ahead and just took out all of the pre-existing outdated ivy, all this foam that was down in here, and then as well all of this Spanish moss. This stuff, I love using it in DIYs personally. Man, it makes the biggest mess. And I am kind of a neat freak when it comes to my crafting space. I like my table to be clean. I don't like things all over it, so you saw me there wiping everything down. Now before I took it outside to spray paint it this London gray, I ended up making sure that I dusted it all off as well because I wanted to make sure that it was really clean and it wasn't going to have any issues with the paint bonding. Once I did 1 coat of spray paint all over it, I'm going to take a tan color and come back in not white, because I think white is a little too stark for it. It'll take away from the beautiful grayish brown color it has. And I'm just going to lightly dry brush all over with that grayish tint. Now I'm going to use my E6000. This is my little key that I had a subscriber send me, and I will link it down below because I get people asking about it all the time now. It works so great for the E6000 bottles. I went ahead and just squeezed out some E6000 and some hot glue, and I put my foam in against the sides of that box. Now remember, you could definitely DIY this particular item. It's so easy with large tongue depressor sticks and a couple of those crate boxes from the Dollar Tree. It's so easy to recreate this look. Now I'm coming in with some beautiful golden tones and ivory florals and leaves, and just really filling it in nicely. I don't want to go too high up because it'll cover up all that lattice work. And then I'm going to come in with this candle that I picked up from the Dollar Tree. I'm going to remove the covering on it because I just want to get to the candle. And then I'm going to take a couple pieces of foam and I'm going to put them on the opposite sides of the spots because I want to make sure that the candle does not shift or slide around in there and it's nice and snug. So I went ahead and put those foam pieces in there, and now I'm going to come in with 2 peonies and I'm just going to pop those right into that foam on the front and the back, and that is going to complete this look. And it turned out even better than I thought. Friends, I say it all the time here, don't be afraid to go into a thrift store. A lot of friends are DIYing these from the Dollar Tree, and I picked this up from my thrift store and saved myself so much time by just giving it a facelift. For this DIY, we're going to be using this sign from the Dollar Tree and some burlap. We're going to take off that twine string, and I'm going to repurpose it so I popped it off. And we're going to paint the back side once the sticker's removed a beautiful red apple color. Once I'd gone all over the whole thing and it's dried, I went ahead and cut out my burlap, and I wanted to make sure that the sides are a little rough, so I did pull some of the fibers to make sure that those are nice and rough on the edge to give it that country charm. And now I'm going to just glue it down onto my sign. Now at this point, you could always use a stencil, you could cut out a piece of paper and trace on the S. There's so many ways to do an S. I'm just going to freehand my S, but what we're doing is we're making a monogram sign, because this has such a charming look on a front door, sitting on a shelf, hanging up on a wall, and it's just so fun to take a simple sign from the Dollar Tree that wasn't ugly to begin with, it was cute, but we're now going to personalize it and really make it something special. Friends, the whole point to me sharing these projects here on my channel is to encourage you to use your hands to make something beautiful for your home on an affordable budget. I do not think home decor should ever cost a lot. I think it should be something that brings us joy and makes it feel like us. Now at this point, my S has been painted on and it's dried, and I'm going to go ahead and reattach my twine back onto it so I can hang it up. And then I'm going to show you how I make my bow. Now I did a video a while ago on how to make a bow. I will link that down below if you're interested on all the different types of bows I make. But this is basically how I make my bow. I take one long ribbon and meet the ends into the middle. Then I pinch it in the middle, and I take this extra piece that I folded down real thin like you just saw me do, and I'm just going to wrap it around it and hold and glue that into place. Then I'm going to cut off that extra part that we don't want on there, fluff out that bow, and already doesn't it look like the most perfect tied bow just because we did this step? Sometimes trying to tie bows, especially with a pattern being on a bow, it's very tricky. Then at this point, I'm going to take the tails, I'm going to pinch the fabric, and I want you to think of it in a zigzag or a Z shape where you're going to fold it over in a pleat and glue on one side and the other side of that Z to make sure it's locking all into place. and then you're going to just add that to the back side of that bow, and this is how you make the most perfect looking bow. This is even how stores make it. If you ever take apart a bow from a store, they make them just like this too. Years ago, I used to work at a family-owned party store, and I learned how to make bows, and it was just so much fun working in the balloon shop and wrapping presents. I loved this job so much when I was a teenager. It was the best. And then once your bow is all done, you can go ahead and just glue that right on. And then because this is country charm, we gotta layer those bows, my friends. So we're gonna add on this gingham double looped bow. And then I thought it would be so cute to take this star button, because buttons are a thing with this country charm too. I'm gonna take some twine and tie a bow onto the front of that star. And then I'm just gonna glue that right on there. And this bow is just really speaking to us at this point. I think all of these layers are just so cute. Now make sure to clean up your backside with some extra fabric, and it's ready to be displayed. This project is so super simple. Don't blink because you might miss it. I printed out these words as a fall bucket list checklist, and I'm just going to simply take an old canvas frame, the wood part of the canvas frames. I took off the fabric, and now I'm going to cut down that printable to the size that I need and simply glue it inside. I love the color of the wood. This is the color of the wood tone I'm using a lot this year in my home for my fall decor, and it worked perfectly. So then just glue it right on the back, and you've got yourself an adorable project for just $1. We are going to be using some burlap, some wood. I happen to have these long signs from the Dollar Tree that I've been cutting up and using over time, some of these mini candlestick holders, and then these little finial toppers. Now we're going to take that wood first, and we are going to cut it down so we have 4 of the same size. You do not have to use these signs. You can use any wood you happen to have on hand, like a 2x4. Anything you have on hand would work for this. Now I'm going to cut it down so that it is 3.5 inches long. And because we're going to be making these cute little mini signs, I'm going with 3.5 inches. You could do it bigger. Again, you can make these much larger in size if you wanted to. I'm going to take my drill and drill into the holes of the candle holders so that way we can glue in some of these shish kebab sticks. And this is really going to allow the base and the wood to come together and have a nice strong hold, so if you drop it, it doesn't pop off. Now here are my 4 pieces that I cut down to size, and I'm going to now drill a hole in these. Whenever I work with my drill, I really do just take my time. I'm not rushing through this because I definitely am not securing it to anything. So that's always my tip. If you're using tools, take your time, don't rush through it. I love having a drill in my craft room. This is actually the one I keep in my craft room all the time so I can use it. Now I'm going to add some glue onto that shish kebab stick and the stand, and you're going to see how that is going to hold in there and really lock it all in place without it ever popping off and having a problem. If you just added hot glue to the base, it's going to pop off over time. So I really always love to try to show you all that it's so important to take these extra little steps just to make sure everything's locked in and built well. Now I'm going to take my little finial topper and my shish kebab stick, and I'm going to repeat that same locked in process where I drill a hole, add a shish kebab stick between them, and then I took it outside, gave it a nice coat of gray spray paint to go with my color theme for this project, and I did a white wash on it. And now I'm going to cut down some of this white burlap, glue that right on to the front, and at this point you can really see it coming to life. Now at first I painted these letters orange, major regret. So I'm going to now go over it with black, and I really just love how the black letters pop and stand out with the gray and that creamy burlap. I think this is so beautiful for a home decor piece, and it costs pennies to make. We are going to be using this free printable that I designed for all of you. It will be linked down below in my description box so you can get to it. And I'm also going to link these little wood bumps that I picked up from Amazon that I just love. And that was included in the price because there were 400 in the pack that I purchased, and I used just a little under the 100 that I used from this one particular pack. Now I'm going to start by taking my fabric, and I'm going to just stretch this over the canvas that I picked up from the DT, and just make sure you pull it nice and tight to get out any wrinkles that you have and to make sure it is really just snugly on your canvas board. Then you're going to cut off any extra fabric and fold in the sides to create a nice clean edge. And I used some of this drop cloth scrap fabric that I had to just make the back look nice and tidy and finish. Then we're going to flip it over and glue on that free printable. And once we have that on, we're going to create a wood frame around it using some of these large tongue depressor sticks. Cut them down to size, making sure that they all match up nice and neat, and make sure you account for them not being too wide or too long, where it meets up to the sides of that free printable so you don't see the white coming out from underneath those sticks, so it creates that frame look. Then I painted them all this pretty soft gray color, and once I had them all glued down and in place, I came back in with these darling wood bumps, and I just framed on top of those wood sticks from earlier, and this adds the most beautiful texture and high-end look to this project. At the very end, we're going to put on the ribbon at the back, conceal it between the two fabrics so it has a nice finished clean look, and then simply add a bow to the top, and it is ready to be hung up for this fall season. Thank you so much for stopping by today and visiting with me. I hope you will give some of these ideas a try, or some of these techniques. Don't forget to grab all of those free printables that are linked down below in my description box. Please do give this video a thumbs up if you haven't yet. It really does mean so much to me. I'm going to recommend a few videos here at the end where you can check them out that are similar to this video. And until the next episode, bye friends.